How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, coming at you with another video. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about here today. We'll start off today's video out on the trail here, and then maybe towards the end of the video we'll head back to the games room. So again, it is important to get outside and get your exercise. You know, that's another thing with the Amico cult. I don't want to keep talking about them. Jesus. But you notice how basically nobody in the Amico cult ever goes outside? With the exception of Turbo Joe. It looks like he is getting outside, at least recently, on his skateboard there, so that's good. Good on him. So what I really wanted to talk about here kind of gets back to the Amico cult, I guess, in a roundabout way. I was on Netflix the other night, and I came upon an older movie. Well, I say older, but it's new compared to what I usually watch. Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects. Now, I've seen that movie. I saw it way back in the day when it came out, 2005. So I'm like, you know, I kind of want to revisit it. Can't remember if I enjoyed it or not. So I said to myself, I'm going to head back and take a look at House of a Thousand Corpses, which is the first movie before The Devil's Rejects. And for whatever fucking reason, on Netflix, House of a Thousand Corpses isn't on there. Only The Devil's Rejects. So see, this is the problem with these streaming services. Why would you have the sequel on there and not have the first movie? So I had to find an alternate means to watch House of a Thousand Corpses. So I went back and watched House of a Thousand Corpses, and I'm not really going to talk too much about the plot here, but a few things to mention. Sid Haig, his role in the movie is absolutely incredible. Rob Zombie's wife, who plays a part in the film, she's not bad. She's a good actor. She's hot. And then you got Walter Scroggins in the movie as well. Now, he later went on to star in a couple of Quentin Tarantino films as well. But the main thing is with the House of a Thousand Corpses, I find, and I notice this a lot with Rob Zombie's films. So Rob Zombie, don't get me wrong, he's a good director. You know, coming from the world of music, White Zombie, and then of course his solo career. He's done a really good job directing films, all that good stuff. But I find he does sort of heavily rely on other films, other aspects from other films in his films, which it's a double-edged sword. It is good in a way, but going back and watching House of a Thousand Corpses, it feels like he's leaning a little bit too much into Tobe Hooper's original The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, you got these kids, and it's funny, Rainn Wilson is in the movie too. So hard to believe that guy's almost 60 years old. So he would have been in his mid to late 30s when this film came out. So you got these kids, not kids, I guess they're supposed to be in their 20s, and they stumble upon this crazy weird family out in the woods, this cult. And it goes on from there. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics, but it's a very similar premises to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, you've got the scene where they've got kind of like a leather face, like a skinned face that's been turned into a mask, and all the rest of it. It's kind of campy. You know, it does feel kind of like not a 90s, but an early 2000s horror movie. It is good. It's not bad. I almost passed out at one point because it does get kind of repetitive. midway through. The first 35-40 minutes, there's fuck all going on in the movie. There's nothing going on. But it was worth a watch. You know, is it perfect? No. I think it might have been the first movie that Rob Zombie ever produced or directed, so it was a good effort. So then after that, I went on and watched The Devil's Rejects last night. Now with The Devil's Rejects, you're basically getting more of the same, but I gotta be honest, I enjoyed The Devil's Rejects more than House of a Thousand Corpses. The intro in The Devil's Rejects is really good. And again, the intro kind of reminds me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a little bit. How the cops go out to the ranch and there's a shootout. I'm not saying they're the same, I'm just saying the aesthetics felt kind of similar. That being said, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out way after. So maybe Tarantino has been watching a little bit of Rob Zombie. You know, back when Grindhouse came out, you know, it was a double feature with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Pretty sure there was a third film when you went to theaters, a short film by Rob Zombie on the same bill. So the more you know. But yeah, The Devil's Rejects, pretty good. Same thing, almost fell asleep halfway through. So again, it's a good film to go back and watch. I don't know if I necessarily need it in my Blu-ray collection, but it was entertaining to go back and watch again. Sid Haig plays his part perfectly. Now, I didn't know this because Sid Haig passed away just a little over 2 years ago, I guess back in 2019. But there's actually a sequel to The Devil's Rejects. I can't remember what it's called. I was reading about it online. I think it's called The Third? Three of them? I don't know. I didn't know there was a fucking sequel. Apparently, Sid Haig is in it to a limited capacity due to health reasons. It got good reviews. I didn't hear much about it. So I wouldn't mind checking it out. So you got House of a Thousand Corpses, which came out around 2002, 2003. It's almost 20 years ago. And then you got The Devil's Rejects, which came out in 2005. And then you've got the new film, which came out in 2019, 14 years later. So I don't know. Maybe I'll check that one out tonight. We'll see. I know the Rambling Man loves it when I do these outdoor vlogs. He just fucking loves it. Holy shit, look at that. Someone's flying a kite, I think, while they're skating. Wow, that's crazy. Out on the ice, which is fucking dangerous. I would never do that. little hut. Holy fuck, she's cold. Snowmobile. See somebody's out on the ice walking their dog. Alright guys, let's head back to the games room and continue on with today's video. Alright, so we're back in the games room. We'll finish this video off. I'm using my Fifine mic here today. Actually having some issues with the other mic that I bought. I don't know if I consider it issues, but it's something that I've noticed that I consider to be an issue. So we'll talk about that on a later video. Anyhow, before we get started here, I got a new drink for you guys. Major Melon Mountain Dew. I haven't had a Mountain Dew in a long time. And I stopped by the thrift store on the way home. I wasn't going to stop. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll pop by just to see. And that's why you always have to pop by anytime you drive by a thrift store. If you drive by and you don't go in, chances are you could be missing out on a hidden gem or a diamond in the rough or something that's sitting there waiting to be snatched up. And today was no exception. So I picked up for the GameCube Swingers Golf. Weird name. Look at that cover art. Who cares if the game sucks? Look at that artwork. That's incredible. So, it's my understanding, this is kind of like a poor man's Hot Shots Golf. We'll see. It was the only game under the Fresh Games publisher on the GameCube, and there was 3 more on the PS2, including Mr. Mosquito. Fresh Games was like a subsidiary of Eidos Interactive, which famously did the Tomb Raiders games back in the day. So, yeah, I can't believe I picked up a GameCube game at the thrift store. You never see GameCube games. Crazy. Complete inbox for $4. So, deal of the century. So, as you know, I could play that on my Nintendo Wii via the backwards compatibility, but I think you need to have a GameCube controller to be able to play that game. Let me know in the comments. Let's try this Mountain Dew out. Oh! I don't know about that. Wow! So the last thing I want to talk about here, there's a guy in the community, he posted a video and he got, people from around the community to talk about tips, tricks, and advice when you're creating a games room or maintaining a games room. So I wanted to just sort of share my thoughts on, a few tips, if you will. I'm not going to go overboard. Just want to share a few things. So with regards to tips, my main thing with a games room is you want to make sure, I know some of us are more tidy than others. Some of us are major OCD and others are complete slobs. But you gotta try to keep your games room clean, guys. You gotta keep it clean. Not only for when people come into the house and maybe they walk by your games room and they take a peek in. They want you want it to be aesthetically pleasing because it is video games, right? But for yourself as well. If you're in the games room, you want to feel good about it. This is something that you're building. And you want to be able to walk in there and stand back like this and sort of appreciate what you've built. So it's easy to let things slip by the wayside. You see it all the time. You see channels like MJR or that other guy, Happy Console Gamer, where they just sort of stack their games on top of each other. I say that while I've got a few stacked right here. But they don't really give a shit about their presentation, and you see some of the IKEA bookshelves that MJR is using, and he's got his games sort of like cramped in sideways, upside down. Like, you got to keep that shit organized. Make sure it's all neatly. You know, you got the Xbox here, you got the PlayStation here, you've got the Nintendo here. Don't mix and match. Try to keep it as neat as possible. That's all I can say about that. You don't want to spend. This is just my opinion. If you can, you want to be sort of frugal with regards to your shelving units. You don't need to go out and buy fucking $10,000 shelving units. You can if you can afford it. Go right ahead. But with me, a lot of the stuff I picked up, I think I picked this up at Walmart, this shelf. And then this one I picked up at the thrift store. And then a few others I picked up at the thrift store as well. And they work just fine. So you want to sort of minimize that sort of spending if you can, so you can maximize what you're spending on your games. That being said, with regards, I guess this falls under the advice. You want to be careful when you're creating a games room, because it is something that's, you know, at first it can be so fun. You're creating a games room. You've got all these ideas going through your head. You know, I'm going to put a shelf over there. I'm going to put a TV over there. A couple of game chairs here. And then I'm going to start, obviously, collecting games. It can get out of hand really quickly. And the next thing you know, you're buying games, but you're not really playing them. You're buying them and you just can't stop buying them. And you're on eBay. And you're out there thrifting, if you will, which you got to be careful of that as well. I used to go to the thrift store way too much. I sort of pulled back from that. But it's just because it gets to the point where every time I go in, I see something and I grab it. And then I bring it home and then it's in the collection. But then I fucking 2, 3, 4 years goes by and I don't touch it. It's an expensive hobby. It can, like we've talked about on the channel, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. It can turn into an addiction just like that. So you need to make sure you control the hobby. You don't want the hobby to control you, and just be conscientious of your spending. I'm a firm believer of waiting for games to go on sale. I know there's a lot of hobbyists, a lot of gamers out there, a lot of enthusiasts that are quick to pull the trigger on buying games brand new all the time. And well, that's fine if you can afford it. You know, that's an easy way to sort of fucking max your credit card. Whereas if you wait a couple of months, you can usually find these games on sale. And that brings up another point. You see it all the time. You know, you got people that are just like, you know, once I get my next paycheck, I'm going to go out there and get that new game. I'm going to go get that new console. Listen, if you're at that point where you're waiting for your paycheck to arrive so you can make these purchases, maybe you shouldn't be buying video games right now. Maybe you should be buying other stuff. Maybe you should be paying off other bills. That's just my opinion. So if you're creating a games room, the goal is to, number one, have fun. Number two, don't treat it as a competition with other YouTubers out there, as an example. Number three, take your time. Rome wasn't built in a day. My collection wasn't built in a day. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of walking into the thrift store at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night looking for games, hunting. And, you know, if you're getting into it now, if you're starting a games room, be realistic about what you're collecting. You know, right now is a great time to get into. It's starting to get expensive with the 360, the PS3, and of course, obviously, you can pick up PS4 and Xbox One games relatively cheap. But if you're going into the mindset of having a games room of completely retro games, you know, GameCube, Sega Saturn, Super NES, like, it gets fucking expensive, guys. And just be conscientious of the space that you have to work with, because it's one thing to start collecting games, but once you start bringing other stuff into the games room, like shelving units, chairs, TVs, computers, it quickly sucks up the space, and the next thing you know, you start cramming things against the wall, obviously, because you don't want to have too much in the middle, and it can quickly become a situation where you're moving stuff around constantly, trying to see what works and what doesn't. And that's the reality of having a games room. It's never quite finished. You will always find yourself tinkering around with stuff. But my motto is, you know, if you're going to bring something into the games room, try to at the same time bring something out of the games room, so you're not constantly, having this sort of Tetris effect where the blocks are building up and you're trying to put the blocks down and they keep going up. Always try to pull something out of the games room if you can. I know it's a difficult thing to do. A lot of you guys, you probably have a hard time parting ways with things in your collection, but try to take a look around. Is there something maybe that you're just not playing? Maybe you can resell it and buy something else that will maybe better complement your games room. So that's it for me. That's it for my tips, tricks, and advice for being in the games room, adding touches to the games room, and we'll leave it there. So if you have any tips and tricks with regards to maintaining or creating the games room, feel free to leave it in the comments below. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.